Hello and welcome into another edition of Buck the World. We are back from a short sabbatical we took to mourn the end of the Bucks NBA season. How much of the finals did you even watch, Bill?
Not enough.
Yeah, I watched maybe 4 out of the 6 games. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good product for the most part. I don't enjoy seeing Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson get injured, but I think the ramifications for the league are interesting at a minimum. I think more teams will feel like they're in it this year just because there's not that chainsaw of Golden State or that buzzsaw rather. Um,
No, the buzzsaw is the Lakers now. What are you talking about?
the Lakers have acquired Anthony Davis since we last podcasted. If
Four.
this is the first time you're hearing it, I don't know what you do with your life and how you find our podcast, but you're here. Um, so they gave up a lot for him. They gave up a bunch of first round picks.
Apparently pick
So
swaps too, if rumor is true, and we'll learn more
yeah,
later.
basically a Nets type haul or Nets Celtics type haul, I should say. But Anthony Davis is 26, not 36, like Kevin Garnett was when they gave up that haul.
Wow, was he
So
really 36 at the time?
he
Man.
was up there. He was 35 or 34. He was quite old. He
Ugh.
literally retired like 2 years later. Like I'm not even sure he finished that first contract. But here we are. Uh, let's talk about sort of what we want to talk about today is this idea of how do the Bucks replicate the success they had this year. They can't bring everybody back. Right now, it seems really unlikely that it would be possible to bring everybody back unless almost everybody takes a huge discount, which you
And
should
they
never assume
move,
that people take discounts.
and they get
And
off the two bad deals that they have left on the team.
yeah, and at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, who do they want back? Who do they not want back? Um, the majority of the Bucks were good last year. The one guy that I wouldn't want back is Pau Gasol, and I don't think he'll come
What?
back,
You're
even though he said he'd
crazy.
come back.
You're crazy. You want Pau Gasol back.
I do not want Pau Gasol.
You don't want the culture?
I
The
don't
winning
enjoy people
culture?
telling me about culture. The Bucks have a great culture.
I hated that tweet. I saw that between you and somebody, and it drove me. And I was like, "No,
Yeah.
stop!"
Culture is something that losing teams build. It's not something that 60 win teams build. The only reason we need to build culture is if Giannis leaves. As long as we have Giannis, we perpetually have our culture. Um, that's the perk of having a superstar. You notice how they never say that LeBron James needs to acquire a 39-year-old dude to build a culture. Yeah, but
Isn't that why they kept Chris? The Birdman, Chris Anderson, wasn't he their culture with the Heat?
no, that's probably why they kept Udonis Haslem. But Udonis Haslem is basically dead. So he's played 500 minutes the last 3 seasons combined. And Eric Spoelstra said we would like to bring him back for another year. 500 minutes the last 3 seasons
That's culture.
combined.
That's culture.
I just
That's
don't
culture.
get it. The suggestion people always make is just stick him on your bench, like make him a coach. And I think there's limits to how many coaches you can have, but like also just have the guy hang out at shoot around every day and give him $100,000.
It's
Like
puzzling. I'm not gonna lie. I feel the same way about Nick. Help me, Oklahoma City Thunder.
Nick Collison, but
Yeah,
he's
Nick
actually
Collison.
retired now.
Yeah, he finally is, but then there was all this
And
hate.
they
It
they,
was
lit,
funny.
they literally retired his jersey and he scored like 5,000 points in the NBA. Like I'm pretty sure Eric Bledsoe has scored almost that many points as a Buck. Like
I don't
that's not
understand the
true,
Nick
but
Collison love, but I do know that if you go after him on Twitter, you might as well declare yourself dead. So do not go after Nick Collison on Twitter.
Oklahoma City fans are crazy. Like I have like 8 of them that follow me, and I'm like, I literally hate both of your star players. I don't know why you do this to yourself. Um, and
Hey,
like
I
I
love
tweet,
their passion though. They got that small
oh,
town passion. I
it's
love it.
terrific, but it's not for me. Um, but let's talk about the Bucks. I think the crux of the Bucks offseason, the sort of linchpin, the biggest cog in the wheel is Nikola Mirotic. No, I'm just kidding. It's Chris Middleton. Do not let anybody tell you that it's not Chris Middleton. If somebody pretends that it's not Chris Middleton,
Julius Randle.
tell them
Julius.
tell, tell them that they are on drugs and you need them to be serious with you right now. And if they still pretend it's not Chris Middleton, cut their basketball opinions out of your life. The only way that letting Chris Middleton walk is okay is if you believe the Bucks can sign Kawhi Leonard, in which case the Bucks would have to waive the rights to Malcolm Brogdon, the rights to Nikola Mirotic, Pat Connaughton, Sterling Brown, and then, just then, they can offer Kawhi the chance to take a huge discount and come play for your Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh my God.
Which he obviously wants to do. Why would he want to stay in Toronto where he
Well,
just
Milwaukee
won a
is
title
like,
or sign in LA where he's from when he can come here and make less money playing for a team that no longer has any shooting and just has Eric Bledsoe and Giannis Antetokounmpo on its roster?
oh, it is frustrating because that extension, man,
So,
it's limited their ability to do things. It's frustrating, but
so their options are to either re-sign Chris Middleton or be much worse next year. I vote in the year that Giannis will be eligible for his Supermax, the year before, I should say, that we do not become significantly worse, and in fact, we retain Chris Middleton. What are your thoughts on the subject?
set him up and I'll knock him down. I mean, I echo everything you said. I mean, we're just kind of circle jerking each other right now because like I agree with that. I mean, there's really nothing else to be said. Like Chris Middleton is so important, and it'll never change the perception of him as a player with certain fans who undervalue him perpetually. So
not with the money he's going to get.
Yeah, especially with the money, it's actually going to become even louder and probably so annoying. Let me tell you this. I have a rule on Twitter that it's not a rule, but I don't really block or mute people because it feels like I'm stifling. Like I just ignore it. It feels like I'm stifling myself and them. But I think I'm going to block and mute Chris Middleton things this upcoming season after we sign him because it's going to get really annoying. So what is he? Let's lay it out. Like let's be frank. What is his max contract going to entail year by year? Like what's his salary going to end up being? Do you know?
I believe the first year salary is 32.5 million, and I believe it escalates if you do the 5-year max. I believe the 5th year would be 40 million.
They're going to try to do the 4-year max, right? Not 5. Right?
It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
I mean, like, I guess you don't want to pay that 5th year because he'll be 32, but like he'll be 33 or 32. It's not the end of the world.
32 isn't a bad. Honestly, 32 is a good year for a player like him. Like
you probably don't want to pay Chris Middleton $40 million, but that's 1 year. Like it's a 5-year. It's a 5-year, $190 million deal, and it would escalate throughout the course of it. The most you can pay him in the first year is 32.5. If I was the Bucks, I would see if he would take 5 for like 175. I would start him at like 29 million instead, just because it gives you a lot more flexibility this summer. More or less, if the Bucks want to retain the full mid-level exception, which they can use over the cap to sign a player for up to 9.1 million, they have to spend less than 46 million on free agents. So, and that 46 million is roughly a ballpark number, assuming some other things fall into place. So with that said, if you want to sign Malcolm Brogdon and you sign Chris to his full year max, you would only have about 14 million to do so in that first year. You could escalate it over the course of the contract, but if you're matching a contract, then you can't do that. And every million that you go over that is 1 million less that you can offer somebody with a mid-level exception, which is the only way that they can offer Brook Lopez more than the minimum. Which is why it's important.
Yeah, that's why I kind of think that they're going to be looking to use that 30th pick after. I mean, they're not going to trade the pick. They can't technically trade the pick, but they're going to trade the player. I mean, the more I think about it, like just to give themselves some breathing room between Brogdon. I mean, it really is like it's sort of it. I mean, let's just. Before I start rambling, let's rank importance. Obviously, Middleton is by far the number one key retention that they need to do in the offseason. But what's your number 2 through? They have 6 free agents, right? Well, 6 when they renounce George Hill. But like rank them for me, and then really, and don't just quantify it. Like really gap them out in terms of their importance in your opinion.
Pau Gasol is last.
I forgot about him. How
Oh,
dare I?
then I might be forgetting about somebody else. But Nikola Mirotic would be second to last for me. He didn't perform in the playoffs, and in general, I wasn't as high on his defense as maybe some other people were. I
Like
think
me.
his shooting's valuable, but at the end of the day, he plays the same position as Giannis. And we haven't really seen a coach that wants to go to center Giannis lineups. So I don't want to make free agent acquisitions based on an idea that the coach does not share. Um, George Hill would be my fourth guy. I love George Hill, but I think you
So
have to
good
say
for
that
us.
Brook Lopez is better than him. And I think that you can get good point guard play from a handful of guys. I'm not saying it's necessarily likely or anything that you'll replicate what he gave you, but if you are re-signing Malcolm Brogdon, the importance of George Hill becomes a lot less. So I would like to also re-sign Brook Lopez. He would be my third guy.
So Brogdon's more important to you than
I
retaining Lopez.
They're about the same. I think Lopez would probably be more important, but I could go back and forth on it. I do think Lopez is more important, but they're not really taking up the same money necessarily. Like in the scenario I outlaid, they would, but like that's also Middleton's money and stuff like that.
You can keep him under almost any circumstance. So
that 46 million number could go up to 53 million if they were able to find a taker into cap space for Sonny Ilyasova, or if they were able to give up maybe the 30th pick and then Sonny Ilyasova, that would create 9 million because the 30th pick would be owed about 1.9, I believe, as a rookie.
Maybe I got that written somewhere if we need to look specifically at it, but I think that's right.
So those numbers matter. I don't want to get too bogged down in the numbers, but that's basically how I feel. Does your list look any different? You know, from a Middleton first, Lopez second, Brogdon third, then Hill, then Mirotic, then Gasol. I mean,
not at all. It's more personal biases. Like I think you and I are slightly different. I irrationally still like Nikola Mirotic a lot. I think he's underrated defensively, and I understand he struggled with the Bucks immensely. And your point about the Giannis center dynamics is really important because it's not something that they've committed to heavily. And you also have Ersan on the roster, and you also have, DJ Wilson, who I think both of us are big fans of his and really want to see him step up next year. So like, as much as I like Nikola Mirotic, the only way I would want him back on the Bucks is if they moved Ersan. Like they would have to do that. Otherwise it's like completely pointless to retain him because he's going to be commanding probably like 10 million per, I would imagine, in the open market. I could be wrong. Maybe it's a little less, but 3 years, 30 million.
I don't think anybody's given him 3 years.
You think? You think they're going to go with 2?
To quote a certain podcast, years over dollars.
Years over dollars. You mean for teams, but the player, I think he's fine because he's still pretty young. So I don't think it's like, I think dollars are fine for him at this point in his career. But I think like a player like Lopez, for example, might be looking for a multi-year deal. I'm not sure because he's injury prone. A center
Lopez
at hit
injury prone.
You can't.
He's been injury prone for the last 6 years. Come on.
You can't erase those devastating injuries he had way back when.
Okay. Then Al Horford's injury prone because he tore his triceps when he was in his 3rd year with Atlanta. Like, come on. And so was Chris Middleton. We shouldn't sign him either.
It's different with big men.
Injury prone. If you're in your first few years in the league and you get injured, like that's part of growing. Like a lot of guys get hurt their first few years in the league and then never struggle with it after.
Was it ankle stuff with Lopez back in the day? It was like 3 years of ankle stuff.
Yeah, I believe it was, but I'm pulling it up just to see.
Fact is,
he's played more than 70 games the last 5 seasons.
Yes.
And he played 82 his first 3 years. Then he had 1 bad year, and then he played 74 the next year, and then he had another bad year. So he's played 10 NBA seasons, and he's had 11 NBA seasons, and he's had 2 where he didn't play 70 games.
You're right, but the reality is, big men like him don't last as long, especially when they have injury issues. Like guys that are his age don't tend like that big. He's so massive. Like he's fighting against like human evolution. Like I'm just saying it's a risk to sign a guy as big as him north of 30 with a previous. I know they were a long time ago. I just think it's still something you have to think about. Like it's versus signing another guy of the same age who's not 7'3" and like 300 pounds. There's just wear and tear there. I mean, putting him, he's not in the paint as much, so he's not getting beat up on. But I mean, that's whatever. That's besides the point. But anyways, Mirotic, for the reasons I basically listed, especially if you retain Lopez, like there isn't really a spot for him. He struggled. I don't think there's a world where he's on the Bucks like at all, and I don't think they're pondering him either. Hill is I loved Hill's play so much for the Bucks.
He had a really good playoffs too.
Hill rescued the Bucks from their point guard problem where they had Bledsoe just on multiple occasions play like complete ass, like, and and now they double down on Bledsoe. So I'm not gonna lie, I really want them to try to figure out a way to get Hill back. Even with, and again, my biases tend to dictate that I'm not a huge fan of Brogdon's game. I think he's the perfect. I think he's a really great player, but I don't know if he elevates the team that much because he's not like a big shooter. He's not like a big time passer. He's a guy who can find lanes and get to the rim pretty well. Like he shoots at a high percentage, but his volume isn't good. Like we've talked about this stuff in spades before. So like a guy like Hill who rescued us from Bledsoe, like that's what he did. He almost feels kind of necessary because Brogdon's not doing what Hill did in terms of as a point guard. And Hill, again, isn't much of a shooter either. So
I wanted to look at how many threes Brogdon attempted a game just to see how much it increased this year. It went from 3.4 under last year's offense to 3.8 this year.
It's bad, man.
Yeah, but hey, even when you normalize it for 36, it went from 4 to 4.8. Like that's not a big increase.
And that's Brogdon. He's got that freaking release. It's not. It's weird.
No, it's not just the release. He passes up a lot of shots that he should probably take because he thinks he could drive.
Yeah, and to be fair,
he was a little better in the playoffs.
That's what I was going to say. When he returned from injury, he looked like he was not passing on open shots. He was being more decisive. He was passing a bit more. He was dribbling less. He was morphing into a shooting guard that would pair next to better, like perfect next to Giannis. But he'll never be the guy what we want to be. And the reality is, Bledsoe, like I am a little scared.
Selection is better.
Like you pairing Bledsoe and Brogdon next to Giannis, that's not the guard tandem you want. Like you need somebody who can shoot at volume. And so like I want to commit to Brogdon too. And I know he's a restricted free agent, but he's definitely, if there's he's definitely not even close to as important as Lopez for me. And I think Lopez may have been a little overrated to end the season because when I believe the team post All-Star break, their defensive rating wasn't nearly as good as it was pre All-Star break. Some people attribute that to DJ Wilson, but I'm not gonna say that's true. That's a little tough to do, so I'm not gonna do that. It's a number of factors, but I mean, I'm actually a little worried that replicate after what we saw from Bledsoe and then having Brogdon as how do you feel about that? I'm rambling. How do you feel about Brogdon, Bledsoe with Giannis, the shooting, Bledsoe's playoff play, Brogdon probably going to be overpaid?
I was going to ask you where Bledsoe would rank on this list if he was entering free agency.
Well, and that's the thing.
I think the answer would be just above Mirotic.
Not for me.
I would rather have George Hill back
as the starting point guard.
Yeah.
Bledsoe was so good defensively. But how important is it to have a point guard who's...
George Hill's fine defensively. It's not like he shut down Kyle Lowry. Unless you have Kawhi Leonard on defense, I don't think anybody's defense is that important. On ball.
And you're right. No, and I really don't think point guard defense is that important. Like, I think interior defense is much more important, and I think team defense from guards is like we've again a discussion we've had before. But honestly, that's a great question. Like looking at Bledsoe, pre-playoff Bledsoe, where would he rank? Like if the playoffs never happened, if they didn't make the playoffs and they never also extended him,
Third.
He would be third. Middleton, Lopez, Bledsoe. And I thought the extension at the time was a pretty good value deal.
But that's where you were wrong.
Post playoff.
The only good thing about it is that it's lower than his cap hold would have been. So
yeah,
that frees up some space,
but they
about an
wouldn't
extra
have,
$2 million.
But if they
But they would have gotten
him
him lower for a price, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But
if they were going to commit to him,
that first, and somebody else, I don't know. The Lakers might have been dumb enough to offer him for $80 million because Rich Paul.
Yeah.
After they miss out on Kemba and Kyrie.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's sort of our free agents. Let's say they bring back Brogdon, Middleton, and Lopez, but they lose out on everybody else. What's your biggest priority for this team to try and sign?
Guard.
Okay.
I mean, okay. Dante could improve. I don't know. They need shooting, man. They need shooting.
Yeah. I wonder if they do keep the 30th pick, there are some guys there that are sort of just shooters. Like guys like, if I say anybody's college name, are you even going to know them?
Nope.
I'll just toss out some names. Ty Jerome from Virginia, Carson Edwards from Purdue. Guys that were really just volume shooters. Like Carson Edwards might have attempted I'm going to Google it so I don't just say something, but he shot a lot of threes and he was very good at shooting them.
I believe you. I will do some research before our draft pod. I promise. I mean, that's great, but
he attempted 10.6 threes a game. I was going to say it was 8. So
10.6 in a fucking college game. That's
yeah. Like first of all, he was their guy. He played 36 of the 40 minutes, but last year he had better players around him, so his usage was a lot lower. But this year it was 37%, and he had a 54% true shooting. Last year he had a 60% true shooting.
That's really interesting. So you can actually look at him as in this low usage role, possibly as a catch and shoot guy, and maybe now he's more of a pull up guy. Like, is there
he's both.
So that's kind of cool. You get the sample size that you can look at as a shooter before he enters the NBA.
Yeah, I know they say that your 3-point percentage sort of normalizes after 700 attempts. He had 763 in college. Last year he was 135 for 380. Like, that's a lot of threes to make in a single year.
But can he hit free throws? The Dante thing. Can he hit free?
He was an 82% free throw shooter, so pretty good.
Okay, that's for a great shooter. That's a little lower than I thought I would think. But
he was a 37% 3-point shooter. Like I'm not saying he's Steph Curry by any means, but I think he's markedly better. He would be the best 3-point shooter on last year's Bucks out of the guards.
No.
Okay, think Chris Middleton's forward.
Yeah, let's not go too far into draft, but because we'll do that next time. But
I think that's a little interesting. In terms of minimum guys, I think there's going to be some interesting guys. I think that the Bucks are going to be a team people want to sign with, just because the Vegas literally has them as a title favorite. I'm not saying they're going to get, Kyrie Irving to sign here on the minimum. Don't get that twisted. But could they get?
Why would I do
that? Not that you would. Not that you would. But
why would I do that?
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they could get George Hill to sign here on the minimum.
Yeah, I don't either. Although he's been known to say things and then go to the Sacramento Kings and sign a big ass contract. So he did it with Utah. So
he did that once. Is he going to do it again? Think about how much better that Utah team would have been if they had George Hill instead of Ricky Rubio.
Yep. George Hill also frustrates me though, because he's not the shooter that I want from the Bucks. I want a Bucks guard to be a shooter who terrifies the defense, like Middleton does. Like Middleton may not be this like crazy shooter, but every fucking time the defense is glued to him
Yeah,
on the
they got to
perimeter. Like
pick him up at half court.
that's what they need from the guard position. Like Middleton, I think that they're going to be like that inside. They have that great inside out offense that got exposed because they don't have that dynamism in the playoffs that we saw. And that inside out offense is going to continue to lead to regular season success, even if they don't get Hill and Mirotic back and they have the same starting five. And then DJ Wilson's a bigger contributor, and Dante's a bigger contributor, and Sterling's a bigger contributor. But like, it's not going to be, if Kawhi Leonard resigns with the Raptors, like, they're not going to, like, that's like, I'm looking to the playoffs already next year. I think we can do that now, right? We can do that.
They're basically none of it matters as long as Giannis stays healthy and Middleton stays healthy. That's what you're looking to get out of the regular season. Home court would be nice, but it's not essential.
I don't even need 60 wins because I'm not sure they're going to get 60 next year if they rest guys as much as they did last year. But
they should be a 55 plus win team,
and I'm fine with that.
If they're not that, then I would.
Getting the 60 wins was awesome, and it's done. I got the banner. I don't care about that anymore. I want playoff success, and so I'm already thinking about like the very little things that are going to matter in this. And I'm already scared of Bledsoe, and I'm already scared of Brogdon. The fact that Lopez rescued the guard position, Hill, is sticking with me a lot right now, and I'm worried that like people are maybe undervaluing his play.
I think they can improve.
Like, do you think Bledsoe can improve and not suck? Because
I think it's really tough for guards. I think it's so much faster and you have to make so much better decisions. Like, we've seen a lot of guards struggle their first couple of playoff rounds. Like
Kyle Lowry.
Damian Lillard had a really good first one, but he really struggled his next few, and then he sort of turned it on this year. But he wasn't that great after the first round. Like, I think it's really tough for guards.
Look at you defending Bledsoe, thinking he could be better.
I think that like Kyle Lowry is a good case. Kyle Lowry does a lot of small things well, and I think Bledsoe needs to understand that it's not just you can't coast, you can't rely on athleticism in the playoffs. Maybe you can against the Detroit Pistons. You can't do that against the Toronto Raptors. I have a list of some free agents that I had put in an article, just sort of guys to talk about.
I remember.
Here's some point guards: Darren Collison, Corey Joseph, Patrick Beverly, Thomas Satoransky, Isaiah Thomas. I don't necessarily think that any of those guys are coming in and giving you everything that George Hill does. Patrick Beverly probably does. Corey Joseph and Darren Collison are pretty good.
Collison's a great shooter.
If you get any of those guys for the minimum, I would feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
Particularly Corey Joseph and Darren Collison are a little older, so that's more likely. Patrick Beverly's a little older. But here's the thing. People will say those guys are pretty good. Pretty good guys don't get like $7 million a year in the NBA. Most teams don't have $7 million a year to offer you. Like, you either get the minimum or you get like a 4-year, $50 million deal. But they don't usually give those to guys in their 30s that are okay.
Ersan
Ilyasova got basically 2 for 14 on a mid-level exception. There's only 30 mid-level exceptions.
You're right.
And there's not even that many because a bunch of them are the tax mid-level exception, which is half as much.
Yeah. And he was our biannual exception, though, wasn't he?
No. Brook Lopez got the biannual exception.
Oh, he got the biannual. Okay. Which
is the biannual exception is it was like 3.4 million. So it's not really even that big of an exception.
Well, it's gone now, so can't use it again.
Until next year.
Yeah. Biannually. What does it mean?
Glad everybody could learn something from this podcast. If you learned one thing, it's what biannually means. And just to run through some stuff, you might think, oh, it's a great idea. The Bucks should trade Eric Bledsoe this summer. Can't do that. Eric
September?
Bledsoe's not eligible to be traded until September 2nd.
Yeah.
So don't even bother talking about it because you can't speed up the clock.
It's still
I saw somebody say that they should let Bledsoe go so they can sign Jimmy Butler. Cool.
Why?
Just convince Jimmy Butler to not do anything for the next 2 months instead of signing.
I'm
sure he'll want to do that.
Is this the MLB where guys just wait for a contract? 2 months into the season?
Yeah, we'll just do that. So
Okay.
that'll be fine. Yeah, that's a big one. I tweet out the cap graphic a lot, just like what it looks like. It's the one that Frank Madden made. If you don't have that, ask me for it on Twitter. I have it favorited, so it's easy access on my phone. You can avoid looking kind of silly online by just referencing that.
Yeah, and to be clear, like nobody wants to be like an elitist where you're like, you don't know, like with people who just come out and say like Chris Middleton is not worth the max. I mean, in a vacuum, no, he's probably not. But
if you consider the max to be reserved for only the best player in the NBA, then Chris
yeah,
Middleton is not the best player in the NBA.
the NBA is hard capped. It's like
if you remember that there's going to be 40 plus, in between 40 and 45 players in the NBA on the max next year, yeah, Chris Middleton's probably one of the best 40 to 45 players in the NBA.
Yeah.
Is he worth $40 million a year?
No.
Do the Bucks have many options? No, they do not.
No.
If you have any questions about the cap, please reach out to me or Bill. We will try and help.
Absolutely.
Me in particular, my DMs are always open. I'm basically always on my phone because I don't have very much to do with my life. And so that's always out there. I do have a handful of people who regularly DM me cap questions. I'm not a genius by any means with it, but I know more than the average person, so I'm very helpful.
And if you yourself are trying to get like educated on it, the Coons got what help me. What's the
I think it's Larry Coon, CBA FAQ,
and it's super helpful, guys. Like I learned everything I did there, and it probably it's taken me like the times I've looked at it, I probably looked at it like I don't know 25 times in the last like couple years for a total of several hours of maximum read time with some notes. That's it, and that's like, and I garnered a lot I needed to know, especially with like the mid-level exception and the biannual exception and taxpayers and non-taxpayers and the Stepien rule that we were talking about earlier and stuff like that. It's really, it's I don't know, it's really interesting stuff if you're in.
And I really want to stress that we're not trying to come off as elitist, but when you say things that are totally misinformed, we like have to call you on it. Just because, like, it's how the NBA works. So, like, I can't really have a conversation with you if you don't understand why the cap is going to be this way. I'll explain the cap to you, but like I can't explain to you why they can't sign Steph Curry this summer. It's not just because he's under contract somewhere else. It's because the Bucks physically cannot offer him that much money.
That is a quick Google search. So that I'm less forgiving with. But enough about the Buck the World goes to school segment, but goes to cap school. But anyways, I mean, we've kind of bounced all over the place, but you know, what my main objective, like if I was the GM, you know, here armchairing, is to really just bring back all the successful elements of the team I could last year. And especially knowing that it's really hard, it's so much harder to do anything fancy because you already limited yourself by extending Bledsoe. You can't really do anything fancy if you want to bring back Middleton. There is no room for fancy things. Like if you didn't have to bring back Bledsoe as well, and you were just trying to bring back Middleton, you could have gotten a little fancy, but you can't do that anymore. And we need Middleton. We do. There's nobody else that we can sign and also retain the support players who's going to bring the same level of impact as Middleton. Like it's not really possible. It's not. The team would be worse, as you said earlier, and we can't have the team being worse. For one, why do you want the team being worse? But for the other, you can't, because we need to keep Giannis here. Like, come on. It's really that simple.
On like pen and paper, I think there was about 6 players that were better than Chris Middleton entering free agency this summer. Just like my rough sort of spitball type thing.
Are you talking about like in a vacuum or even in fitting with? Okay, because then there's the on the Bucks conversation.
Yeah, and then there's the who fits better on the Bucks, and then like it's easy to talk yourself into Kemba Walker because he's an all-star and he scores a lot.
Klay Thompson,
his efficiency isn't that good. Klay Thompson, I think Klay Thompson's a great fit. I think they would miss his playmaking a little bit. So Klay Thompson, perfect fit. Kemba Walker, not so great.
I still think
then
Kemba would probably be better than Bledsoe in the playoffs because you can't really be worse than
I
that.
think
But
he would be, but we're
yeah,
comparing him to Middleton. So
yeah, okay,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
there's 6 players better than Middleton. Okay, 2 of them suffered injuries that are going to keep them out all
oh
of next year. So
man,
now there's 4 guys. So,
man, those injuries.
and I think there's one guy that would really be worth it, and that's Kawhi. And then you have guys like Al Horford. I think Al Horford's probably better. Um, it's close. Um,
It's hard though to do
Kemba
that, but
Walker,
yeah,
Kyrie Irving, and Kawhi Leonard. So I think those are the 4 guys.
yeah.
It sort of gets tough after that. Um, in terms of getting cute this summer, I don't think there's a whole lot of room. The Bucks
There,
don't have a ton of assets. I
no.
think they could do. I think they can make a really good pick at 30 that could end up being a contributor.
You think so?
Yeah, yeah.
I
Why
thought
not?
this was like the worst
It's not
draft.
a great draft, but I think there's
Is it
guys
a
that are
bad
pretty
draft top? Is it bad on the top and then okay on the bottom?
bad.
Like a bad.
I wouldn't really say that. I think the guy that they're going to get at 30 is worse than the average prospect at 30,
Okay.
but that player can still turn into a good player. The
Yeah.
Bucks got Malcolm Brogdon at 36. They got Sterling Brown at 46.
Mhm.
So just keep that in mind. At, the real impact, the cool things that you can see this summer are the Bucks signing really good guys for minimum contracts. And when I say really good, I mean guys that are better than Pat Connaughton, who's fine.
Guys that the Bucks would have to pay $11 million a year for normally.
Back
Like
in
if they,
2008. Yeah.
yeah, like, like they did for most famously, their worst Bucks contract was the Miles Plumlee deal that we talked
Yeah.
about. But
And
yeah,
I don't even want to talk about that. I'm still kind of mad about it because I remember
it's
asking.
still on the books too.
I,
We're still paying for Spencer Hawes.
I remember asking Alex Lazary, like I said to him on Twitter, there's nobody else that was offering this, and he was a restricted free agent. He says, "You don't know what's out there," and I said, "Literally, there were 2 teams with cap space, so I do know what was out there." Like,
was it the Hornets?
no,
Like, could they have been the other team? Like,
I think it was literally the Nets and it was somebody that was really bad.
What did
It
he end
might
up
have been
getting?
like the
14
Nuggets
million per year? I don't remember. 12?
It was 4 years, 52 million. I don't know exactly the escalations and de-escalations, but
So bad.
he was our third string center.
I mean, he looked like he was being primed to be fashioned into the starting center, but yeah, you're right.
I think John Henson was better than him, and it was dumb when you already had extended John Henson.
I don't understand. I don't
understand. I don't understand why Charlotte took that contract. Like,
thank you, Charlotte. Thank you.
But yeah, let's move on from that. So I think we'll see somebody like one of those point guards we listed, maybe Darren Collison sign for the minimum here.
I love Darren.
That's a really good player to get for the minimum.
Yeah,
we might
see.
Wait,
does he play? Let's factor the one thing we haven't really discussed. Like, let's factor in like Mike Budenholzer's preference as a player. We can see it. We already saw his preferences sort of shape moves.
Future Buck season. Mike Scott checking in.
No, but maybe. No more big men. We're good.
Aside from dumping Tony Snell or Ursan, is there like any trade you could even see out there? Like, they wouldn't trade Sterling Brown or DJ Wilson, would they?
There's a world where they do trade some of those guys, but by God, the return has to be like something we wouldn't expect. It would be something like that would fit on the Bucks team well, like that. I would imagine it if Horse God. Oh no, stop, dude.
That would be kind of fun.
At him at center.
Yeah, him at center next to Giannis. He turned into a pretty good defender. How many threes does he take?
I don't want mid-rangers. I know he's okay at it. Wait, did he stop shooting the mid-range?
No, I think actually San Antonio shot the most mid-range shots in the league.
Yeah, I know they're going backwards as an offense, but yeah, like Pop cannot be put under fire. Oh yeah, even though he made one of the worst trades of all time, wanting DeMar DeRozan, Kawhi Leonard for absolutely nothing.
LaMarcus Aldridge attempted half a three a game last year, and he shot 4%.
Yes.
Sign him up. Get him in here.
No, bud, you do not. The only thing you take from Pop is his winning ways, not his coaching anymore. I don't know when
I
his
think
old.
he actually shot a career high, or he blocked a career high number of shots. Yeah, he
Okay, so
blocked
did
107 shots last year, so he's basically a rim protector now. So LaMarcus Aldridge. Wait, what
oh,
if?
so let's get Lopez except without the shooting. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a great move. Really, everybody wins.
A smaller Lopez without the shooting and the cool personality, and without being able to say Splash Mountain.
He's on the books for 50 million the next 2 years. Oof.
LaMarcus?
Yeah, with a
Whatever, dude. The
15% trade
San
kicker.
Antonio lives in its own
Oh wait,
freaking bubble
the
now.
last year only has $7 million guaranteed. That's actually not that bad.
Hmm.
Eh, eh,
Yeah.
eh.
But I
Oh
think
well.
there is, as for what you're saying, I think there is a world where like Horse God is working the phones.
I, I I don't think there's anything out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, if somebody else calls him regarding something and they work out a deal where they can get a piece that I don't know, like is more than the sum of its parts, as in, because DJ's still sort of a work in progress. I really hope Bud actually wants to play him more. Um, I'm not sure he will. I hope he will. That's mostly why I want Urson moved, because I think there's a lot of room for some DJ Wilson, and Dante looks like the perfect sort of offensive piece the Bucks need, which is this
And he's
this
a, he's a pretty good defender too. We'll see.
yeah, and I think he's got some I think he's like a better primed to be a better version of God. I hate to do the white guy comparison thing, but primed to be a better version of his teammate Pat Connaughton. But I don't know. I think that they like. Do you see this? Okay, let's say this squad comes back the same, except for Hill and Mirotic, and then they like get Darren Collison, and then that's their team. Is that like? Obviously they need to fill in the
It's
gaps.
basically the same team.
Yeah. Do you think that team is like gonna can win a title?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess. Well, if Kawhi stays with the Raptors,
They
man,
can beat the Raptors. Yeah.
you think so?
Yeah. Everybody's gonna be a year older there. They got like
Oh, so Fred VanVleet's going to turn into more of Michael Jordan? Oh,
no, but
great.
like all their big men are old. Marcus Gasol, Serge Ibaka. Like, are you gonna rely on those
Kyle
guys?
Lowry's
Pascal
getting up there
Siakam's
too.
like the only guy that's Kyle
And
Lowry's 34 or something like
the
that.
thing is, like the likes of Norman Paul, Fred VanVleet, and Siakam, they could all get better. So I don't know. Like that's why I'm sort of
I don't think
panicky.
Norman Powell can get better.
What is he, like 26?
He's 26 or 27. He was like a 24-year-old
Well,
rookie.
he could be more consistent. So
I think that's who he is. Yeah, I don't. We can do sort of predictions for the rest of the East at a later point in time once we know a little bit more. Maybe we can assess it again after the draft, sort of what their free agency needs are. Maybe like an eve of free agency podcast. So our plan, we'll just sort of. You're good to wrap it up, right? I think we're about done here.
yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really much to be said. Bring back Middleton, bring back Lopez.
Bring back Brockton if the price is reasonable. If it's not, see if you can get a little cute with some of this stuff, and maybe get some guys for some like $4 million deals under the cap or something like that.
What wouldn't you match for Brogdon? What wouldn't you match?
Anything that would impact me not keeping Brook Lopez.
Okay, so that it's not a dollar amount for you. I mean, at this point they're going to a luxury tax, so whatever.
If it's over 20 million, I probably wouldn't match it. I just don't think he's ever going to be a 20 million player. But
it's like 17 or 18 for me. But yeah,
that's about the same, really, though.
Yeah. This is operating a vacuum. You're right.
I proposed a trade that was Snell for Etuan Moore, just so that we could cut $3.5 million off and save that. And it expired a year earlier, but nothing about the cap really matters next year. So, another fun fact for you: no matter how much they spend this summer, they'll still be able to afford Giannis's supermax next summer. Great cap. Doesn't matter. They could have literally $170 million on and be like way over the tax, and they could still supermax Giannis. that's just how it works with bird rights.
Do you think that, thank God for bird rights, but do you think that that's in the Larry Coons FAQ as well, if y'all are curious and want to look at exactly what bird rights means? But I don't remember what I was going to say, but I do know that I am hesitant to. I wonder how committed they are to going and paying the luxury tax, and because there's no way like
They're
they
not going to be
couldn't.
that deep into the luxury tax this year, though.
Well,
And
they'll
then
have to pay, but they'll be probably thinking after they sign
yeah,
Giannis is super like the what is it called it doubles. It's the
the repeater
multi-year
tax.
repeater tax. That's what they're probably scared of.
But that's only if you're in the tax for more than 3 years.
Oh,
Or is
okay.
it
I
more than
thought
it's not just the second year you're in it, I don't think. I think it's like you have to be in it multiple years. I might be thinking of baseballs though, actually.
I don't know.
But
So
I do think that is a worthwhile point. I don't think it's necessarily going to matter because I don't think they're going to get that deep into it unless they would make a trade. Um, the Yeah, you got to remember that they got some stuff coming off the books. Like they're
yeah,
not going to have
Hawes and Ursan.
Hawes, Ursan,
Mhm.
Snell will come off the books before Giannis's supermax kicks in.
Well,
Um,
he'll pick up that player option. You know that.
but
Snell's picking up that player option.
Giannis is already under contract for that year.
Oh,
The
yeah, yeah,
supermax is an extension on top of that.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna do a draft pod Tuesday night, so we'll try and get that out to you Wednesday morning. We got my friend Gabe Esquivel at All Day Sport Talk on Twitter coming on to help us break down some draft prospects and just sort of talk about what the Bucks could get at 30 if they keep it, if he thinks they should keep it, that sort of stuff. So we'll come back to you then. For now, I'm Alex Juno at Junes for Shiz on Twitter. Hit me up. I'm close to breaking 1,500 followers. Love my followers. Flex. And then we got my friend Bill Canzanieri is it at Bill Canzanieri? Yeah.
It is.
On Twitter. So follow us. We'll keep bringing you great tweets, great Bucks content. But until then, we'll see you next time.